Yesterday, President Trump delivered one of the most consequential speeches of his presidency, unveiling allegations that China compromised American election data and exposing what he says intelligence officials failed to tell the public. But could China actually penetrate our election infrastructure, access voter systems, or manipulate the democratic process? What about Venezuela? What about other countries? Now, Charlie Kirk has spoken openly about election interference, stolen elections, and mass surveillance for years. We'll also discuss how your cell phone can be used against you for mass surveillance, as well as how it could have been used to leverage whether or not Tyler Robinson was actually at UVU, or most recently, the Panguitch Steakhouse, which is what Diligent Dennison has been talking about, and also if he was actually in the spot where the gun was dropped in the bushes, or like the Losi Center, right? And this could also include his vehicle. We're trying to verify something right now on the vehicle year, but depending on the year, that could decide whether or not that could be traced as well. Joining me today is Mr. Terry Reinert. He is a career hacker and current government contractor, cybersecurity expert, He's also a accomplished software engineer, current defense contractor with his company, and he's a former Raytheon principal cyber engineer, owner and operator, CEO at Fleet Defender, and also a former U.S. Marine who understands how nation-state cyber attacks operate from the inside. We're going to examine the evidence to determine whether this is a genuine national security emergency, like Trump says it is, a massive intelligence failure, which most likely it would be, or simply political theater. Terry, thanks for your service, and thanks for joining me.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Now, let's start with what Trump announced. Can you give us like a short recap before we dive deeper into the systems? Because I know that you've been actually looking into the documents, correct?
Yeah. They released quite a few documents on whitehouse.gov. So like there's nothing like, I'm not operating on, hidden information here. It's if you go to whitehouse.gov, I think there was even a pop-up that was just like election interference documents, and you just go and there's like 4 different pillars or threads that he released documents on.
All right. So I guess the first obvious question is, based on what Trump has revealed, was America actually hacked, or was it just information that was collected?
Well, it's really interesting because I think, like most things, when he was giving his speech, he alluded to these widespread hacks and different things. But when you actually get into the documents, it's interesting, right? Like there's enough information there to show that there was intent and that there was definitely people, nation state actors, Venezuela, China, Russia, in Iran, looking to interfere with our elections. But, and not surprisingly, there wasn't specific information released on actual incidents that occurred. Because usually when you have things like that, so like in, classified information, you're going to have different classification levels for different types of data. And like when you actually get into actual vulnerabilities or where things actually happen, that's going to be classified at a different level or in different compartments than what other information would be. So what they released was, a lot of it was public knowledge already. There's probably some new stuff in there, but it's mostly benign. But there are some really interesting threads that we can pull on that I think when you read between the lines, tell you a little bit more of the story. And that's where things get really interesting.
So from a cybersecurity standpoint, does the evidence justify the description that the election was, hacked or manipulated by China?
I think it supports the idea that it could have been, right? Like, for example, one of the things that's contained in the documents is a report from CISA where they had a red team. So red team are, hackers that are looking at a system, an application, or whatever, from an attacker perspective. There was a CISA red team that was able to compromise the voting systems within hours and days, and they had like full access. And so, I mean, that goes to show that it is possible, right? Like it's absolutely possible. Now there's a lot of nuances, like what can you do once you gain access? And it also depends on which system you gain access to, right? So there's a lot of caveats in this, like, but to blanketly say that we have, like, these documents contained information that specifically shows that China hacked our election, that's not in there. And it makes sense, right? Like the government probably would not declassify that and release it, if we had it. But again, it shows that good guy hackers, red teams that are looking at it, we're able to actually compromise systems. We're actually able to gain access, and we're actually able to have effects on things. And so that's really interesting, because before that, most of the narrative that you heard is, no, our elections are secure. These digital voting machines are secure. Like there's no way they could have done this. This proves that there actually was attack vectors that could be used to gain access and compromise those machines.
So what type of things would have to happen for you to consider it a true compromise of our systems?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really depends, right? And there's different levels, and we can break them down. These systems are very, very complex. There's many different parts to our voting, our election systems and stuff like that. And, the first one that you could really look at is just poll registries. Like there's still some areas where everything's still on paper, right? Like, so you go in, they have an actual paper list that they printed out. Like, you got to show them an ID. They give your name. Other places, it's all digital, no ID. Like, it's just complete, Wild West when you get there. Like, I think those are the ones that are most concerning. But like, if you can actually affect some of the poll, like the voter registry databases, like you can change and alter information to where legitimate people can't vote because there's, discrepancies in the data that's in the actual database. Or you could just add a bunch of people to the database that don't exist, that they can go in and vote illegally because they don't technically exist and they were, added to the database. So those tend to be what we would call like the softer targets. There's less scrutiny around them. They're online. You've got voter districts that have tablets that, the poll workers are using to collect the information. And I'll tell you, a lot of the people working the polls and they're volunteers. They mean well, like they want secure elections. Like, this isn't their fault. They've got a tablet and it's just telling them information from a database, right? And so that can be compromised. That's something that was in the documents as part of the red teams, is kind of that softer target. And then going all the way to the actual voting machines themselves, there was some vulnerabilities that were disclosed in these documents that shows that auditing the results is very, very difficult. Like, for example, when you go in and you're reading English language, human language, that says this is who I'm voting for, and then it generates a barcode, you can't look at that barcode and say,
and verify it.
Yeah. And verify it, right? Like, there's no audit trail, right? Like, now that barcode becomes truth. And now there's this ambiguity between what you saw on the screen and what that barcode actually says, that you cannot verify that it captured your vote correctly. And that's a big problem, right? Like, back in the old days of, like, you remember was it George W. Bush election in Florida? We had the hanging chads, the hole punch and stuff. Well, you'd think it's very easy to audit, but like, what constitutes a punch and what doesn't, like, if it's so much perforated, is it considered a vote? But, you can at least audit that. You can actually sit people in a room. They have a piece of paper. There is or there isn't a hole punched in the piece of paper, and you can audit that. You can see that. But when you go to these like digital systems where, what you actually punch into the machine and click go or vote or whatever the button is, then on the other side, this barcode, you can't verify it. You can't audit that. And that becomes truth. And I think that's where it gets really scary, because if there was a supply chain compromise, if there was a network compromise, if there was a machine compromise, and the attacker was able to actually get into the machine and compromise it in a way that alters your vote, you cannot audit that. And so that's where things get really, really scary with this. Like, the digital voting machines, I don't personally like them because it kind of removes the ability to audit.
We have seen something similar, though, with the like handwritten ballots. We saw that people were signing them, falsely and stuff like that. I think there were hundreds or thousands of them. We saw paper ones that were getting burnt and things like that. Like, they would open the boxes and burn it, or like pull them out and throw them in the, I think some were found like in a dumpster or something somewhere, like behind a Wendy's. I don't know. Fill in your blank. We're not implicating Wendy's in any of this, by the way. But yeah, it's very interesting. But just really quick, everyone that's here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. And really quick, can you define what you consider to be a hacker versus like an ethical hacker?
Yeah, I mean, I think a hacker is just somebody who's really curious that wants to figure out how things work, right? Like to me in my life, like hacker's never been a negative term. It wasn't a negative term until like Hollywood started sensationalizing it in different movies, which great movies like Sneakers,
Yeah.
Hackers, there's been some War Games, fantastic movie. I think a lot of those actually kind of characterize like good guy hackers, but then you get the headlines and the news stories, like it's sensational, right? And the media is there to sell you sensation. So you click on things and they get more money. And so, when you commit a crime, you're just a criminal, right? Like hacking and a hacker doesn't mean you're a criminal. It just means you're a curious person trying to figure something out, reverse engineering it, tinkering, writing your own software, modifying stuff. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, Apple Computer was started by Steve Wozniak, very well-known hacker. And so, I personally don't like the term hacker being drugged through the mud. I just like to call them criminals because they broke a law. So
you've seen, well, you don't have to tell me the specific things. Obviously, you have some NDAs and things that are top secret and stuff like that from your career. But in general, have you seen things similar to this that either you guys caught or you tested and created that could have devastating effects on a society?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's true. I mean, for anything. And I think there's plenty of public information out there that you can look at and see, what is possible. So, I mean, it's actually quite scary. If you actually go to some of the online, vulnerability databases, they're called CVEs. And CVEs get logged whenever you disclose a vulnerability that you find. And so, and then usually what'll happen is you have like an ethical disclosure process. So like when you find a vulnerability in something, you can go to the company, you can go to the government, and you can say, look, this is what I found, blah, blah. They'll patch it. And then once it's patched, they'll release publicly the CVE. So then other researchers know that it existed. There's more awareness around it. And it's a good thing, right? Like if you don't know what happened in the past, you can't fix it in the future. So I think it's a really good thing to have. So you can disclose them, but you can just go out there and you can look at all the CVEs. And if you just do a Google search, like show me every CVE that was in a critical infrastructure, like look at, power control systems, look at, water treatment plant systems, hydroelectric dam systems, like you can find this stuff and you can see what vulnerabilities were there. And the big one that you want to look at is vulnerabilities that lead to an RCE or a remote code execution. And that's the scariest ones because that means it's a vulnerability that, a hacker, criminal, whatever terminology you want to use, can use to actually run their own code on the system. So if you have like this highly secure programmable logic controller that's running a chemical treatment process in a water treatment plant, you don't want somebody else running code on that machine. You want it to do what it was supposed to do. And so the RCEs, those are the really scary ones. Those are exploitable. They're vulnerabilities that are exploitable and you can run remote code on them. That's where things get really scary.
Would that be similar to the code that was run to speed up I think it was turbines in a nuclear plant that made them spin so fast it like destroyed?
I think you're talking about like the Iranian centrifuge attack.
Yes,
it was called Stuxnet. Yeah, Stuxnet. Yes. So that one actually had many vulnerabilities in it. Like, again, this is all public knowledge. You can go out there, you can like download all the analysis and PDFs on it and stuff. And there were, one of the systems that was compromised was a Windows, operating system, a computer running Windows operating system. And there's a couple of different exploits that allowed attackers to gain access to do what's called a privilege escalation, to like gain additional privileges on the machine so they can, run code as like an elevated user, like an admin. We call it like kernel level access, something like that. And then they were actually able to pivot. And then there was some exploits in there that went against the Siemens programmable logic controllers that controlled the centrifuges. So yeah, so kind of a multi-layered kill chain there. Fascinating piece of code. But yeah, that's kind of what you'd be looking at. It's things like that.
So in this case, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've looked at the documents and stuff, but it sounds like Trump is saying that China accessed data, which in some kind of way modified and changed the election. But based on what I'm seeing, it looks like voter data was remotely stolen or viewed. But does that equate to changing votes and stealing the election based on what you've seen?
So there were many different pieces. So one piece was specific about Venezuela, and I think it was the Maduro administration. And it really focused on what they did in Venezuela. So it didn't really have anything to do with US systems, except for kind of like a case study of, well, if they did this in Venezuela, could they do it to the United States? And the consensus, and remember, these are intelligence documents, so you usually have different points of view in them. So even in the document themselves, they actually contradict. They're like, the majority view says this, the minority view says this, right? And so because like even in intelligence, you never have 100% true picture of all the information that's out there, right? It's just the nature of intelligence. And so you get to a certain threshold where you're 60% sure of something, and then you take an action or whatever that threshold would be. So in the documents themselves, they disagree a little bit. But on the Venezuela side, it was pretty clear that the Maduro administration down there was able to manufacture about 1.5 to 1.6 million votes. And they were able to actually do it. And they pulled it off. He bragged to his team and congratulated his team that did it. And so there was, a lot of intelligence around that. But the reason they were able to do that is, physical access to machines. They could actually access machines, compromise them, and then put those into voting locations. So they had physical access. They had full control. They weren't like people in another country just attacking it over the internet. And so, again, they talked about that was able to happen, but they deemed that the likelihood that they were able to affect a U.S. election was small. And so that, again, ended up being a little bit benign there. But on the other side, there was another thread that talked about China compromising voter registrations, like 220 million, I think, voter registrations.
Yeah.
So like who you are, what's your party affiliation, where have you voted before, how did you vote, like all the different information that's tracked out there, they were able to compromise that and gain access to it. And again, like that's kind of the softer target, right? Like those online databases, they're supposed to be firewalled. It doesn't always work. There's no such thing as a perfectly secure system. So, but it's a softer target. You can get to it pretty easily. Like databases are meant to hold data that can be accessed. Now, it's supposed to only be accessed by certain people or certain systems, but you can compromise those and gain access. So that is something that was in the documents, was the voter registration compromise.
All right, we have a few people on chat that are curious where you're from.
Oh, so, well, it depends. Like I was born in North Dakota, so kind of the middle of nowhere, grew up in Florida, and now I live in Nebraska.
Which is the greatest place in the world. It is not a flyover state.
No, actually, it's funny. I always tell everybody, they're like, wait a minute, everybody in Nebraska is trying to move to Florida. Why did you move from Florida to Nebraska? And so it's kind of funny. So I moved out here basically for a job, and I was I had an office on the beach in Florida. Like you couldn't really beat it. It was pretty nice. And, but it was a great step in my career. I was like, oh, I'll go to Nebraska for a year. Why not? And then like 3 months in, met, a woman who's now my wife. And so I'm a Nebraskan, and I've been here for about 10 years. So that's just how it works, right?
You got locked down by Nebraska, and that's what happened.
That's what happens, right? But now I think she wants to move to Florida. So in a couple of years, we're gonna we're gonna reevaluate things in a couple of years.
Going to reverse course again. Now,
yeah, exactly.
So now, as far as the systems go, is there anything you're aware of? I know Venezuela, you said 1.5 million votes were generated. Does that mean 1.5 million votes were pushed into the system that affected the outcome of that election in the U.S.?
That's what the documents led you to believe. Yes. Okay.
So in your opinion, is that why we attacked Venezuela and went in there?
Oh, geez, that I don't know. Like
okay.
I can't say that I'm a super smart on like strategic political moves at the global scale. I'm just a humble little hacker, in my corner. But I'm sure there is a lot of different reasons. I could speculate all day long, but I mean, without being in the inner circle and in the war room, you can only speculate.
So really quick, we talked about this a little bit before, and by the way, for anyone that's watching this, he's going to have a full interview out on the Off Script interview channel. That one should probably be out either later this week or next week early. But just really quick for the audience, can you break down like how risky or how easy it is to get into like the Internet of Things and the stuff that's in people's houses?
Well, it varies. It can be very, very easy and it can be pretty difficult, right? Like it really just depends on the device, what we call the stack, right? Like, so we call it a stack, and at the very bottom of the stack is the hardware and how the hardware is built. And at the very, very top of the stack is like applications that run on it. So like if you think about your normal cell phone, like an Apple iPhone or whatever, like you got the hardware stack, which is the hardware that's physically running. You've got a hypervisor, you've got an operating system, and then you've got applications, and those applications are written by third party, right? Like you can have Magic Kingdom, the video game, that's application layer type stuff, yeah. Right? And so it really depends on what that stack looks like. Different systems are tested differently, and they're designed and built differently. And we found IoT devices that you could pretty much hack in about 10 minutes. All the way to ones that, you work on them for 5-6 months and you're to find something. But what I can say is, on all the teams that I've ever been on, a member of, or put together and ran, there was never a system that we couldn't compromise in some way. Now, could we get a full, RCE and take it over? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Or in some cases, all you could do is just get enough data off of it to track it or something along those lines, right? Like it really depends.
Now, someone had a really, really good question. How easy is it to hack into people's Android phone or like an Android system?
Oh man, I would have loved to answer this question like 6-7 years ago. Because back then, like the answer was so easy. Android had a lot of security issues early on that Apple didn't have. Not to say that Apple's secure. Again, whenever I talk about this, remember, there's no such thing as a perfectly secure system. Like they're highly complex systems. They're built by humans. Surprise, humans are flawed. And so we write flawed software, right? And oh, by the way, all AI is trained on human knowledge, and therefore AI also generates, flawed software. So there's no such thing as a secure system. You just try to do it good enough, right? Like you layer your defenses and you get good enough. But modern day today, Android and Apple both have really, really good security models. And you're not going to get, kernel level access, which is like full control over the entire phone and everything in it with one exploit, right? Like we've moved from the day of, just a curious hacker. I always say like a kid in mom's basement, right? But it could be anybody just curious, like single person, few people that could gain access and get kernel level access to a phone a decade ago, to today, where getting into an Android, getting into an Apple phone, like it usually takes what I would call nation state level resources. So those are going to be like organized crime syndicates or nation states that are actually able to generate the number of exploits and implants in the kill chains that are required to get into your phone and then get to like kernel level access and do everything that you might want to do on a phone.
Have you ever heard of Celebrate?
Yes.
I think it was used in the Tyler Robinson court case. I think it was used to go through his phone or get access to the phone or something similar. And I think it's been used for other ones as well. Are you familiar with that kind of technology? Is it kind of like the old Windows systems where there was like a universal password to get in, or is it actually doing something else behind the scenes?
Well, so a lot of those things, there's one for vehicles too. For some reason, I can't think of the name of it. Barilla or some, it almost sounds kind of like a taco, like honestly, like the name of it. But I'll think of it in a second, I'm sure. But yeah, there's like these different digital forensics tools that are used for different things. And Celebrite is one for, cell phones. This other one is specifically for ECUs in a car, that they can like strip like the data out of the black box or out of some of the ECUs to, find out like, were you speeding? What was the position of your brake pedal, your acceleration pedal? What was your speed, those types of things at different times. But all of them, they have a mix of technologies in them. Like there's some systems that are designed to just give you information, right? Like if you plug into the OBD2 port in your car, so that's the little funky shaped connector that's underneath your steering wheel on the left-hand side. It's like they call it OBD2 is onboard diagnostics. So it's a diagnostics port. You can query different information from the systems. Like, what is your model number? What is your software version for every computer in your car? You can query different information. And so like, what's the current speed of the car, things like that. So that's just information that's just built into the system and freely available. Like, you can just get it. And then there's some ECUs that, like, I'm not even kidding here, they have commands in them that you can send messages to just read memory out of the ECU. Now in modern days, they've started password protecting and stuff behind like layers of protection. But 10, 15 years ago, like, it was actually a super easy thing to do. It was, scarily enough. And so I think early cell phones, it was a lot easier to scrape, but now because of privacy, and which is a joke, but because of privacy concerns, and we can talk about why that's a joke. They have made it harder, right? Like, there's been this big push on encryption and what the government should be able to access, what they shouldn't be able to access. And, there's always these fights on Freedom of Information Acts and subpoenas and stuff to get passwords for people's phones and things like that. But, yeah, so those tools, it really depends on the level of access. If you're just, you got a phone, you don't have the passcode to it or anything else, it does need to be able to jailbreak or root the phone in some way. So they're probably using an exploit. And then, it's just whether the phone manufacturer has patched that, they're running the latest software version that patched that bug or not. And then in other cases, the court system can hold you in contempt if you don't give up your passcode. So it's like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not giving up my passcode. Well, then we're just going to keep you in jail until you do, or until your lawyers, hit a First Amendment, right or something and get you out. But one way or the other, like, they'll get to it, right? Like, again, tools that the NSA or the FBI have access to are going to be very different than the tools that you or I have access to.
Now, we have another question here. They say, what about smart TVs? Is it true? I've heard rumors. I've seen like whole like Dateline, 60 Minutes and all that kind of stuff say that your TV can spy on you. There's cameras inside of them. They can hear what you're saying and all this kind of stuff, just like a phone. They have a microphone apparently as well. Is that true? And then if that's the case, is there anything that can be done about that?
Yeah, it is true. It's true with any of these systems, right? Like IoT in general. And it's kind of like online banking, right? Like, there's levels of brokenness to online banking, and people that really study this stuff, like, they know that it can be compromised, but it's so useful, I'm going to use it anyway. Right? Like your vehicle, surprise, surprise, can be taken over remotely. There's, we've developed it. We've proved it at Fleet Defender, that vehicles can be compromised. You can listen to everything going on inside the car, what everybody's saying. You can track the car. You can get information off of it. And in some cases, you can even take over steering and brakes and stuff remotely, never touching it. No joke. But
you guys actually did that in practice, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we do that. So, you can't be a good defender if you're not a good, attacker. Because if you don't actually know what attackers are capable of, if you don't know what's actually out there, how can you defend it? I mean, I think that's a joke, right? So I think it kind of goes back to like the old days of strategic air command, right? Like, the best defense is a good offense. So it's kind of the same idea, right? Like, if you don't have some degree of skill in attacking systems, you're not going to be a very effective defender, because you can't think like an attacker. And like, the whole point of an attacker is we think differently. We're going to come up with ways that you never thought of. We're going to come up with ways of using your system against you. There's this whole thing called like it's called ROP. And basically, as an attacker, you can chain code that's already in the system together in ways to make it do what you want. So I don't need to like send this huge payload and implant into a system. I can use the code that's already in the system against it. Right. And so, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there on the question, but back to IoT devices and things like that. They can be compromised. They can be used in ways that that the original designers never intended them to be used. But I have a smart TV and I connect it to the internet because I want to stream Netflix. I mean, of course, it's very, very convenient, right? So it's like you accept some level of risk is what it really boils down to. But again, to IoT or any other system, always assume it can be compromised, right? Like, the second you start assuming that you have a secure system, you are screwed. Like you gotta, everything in cybersecurity is truly like just compartmentalizing information, safeguarding things, and dissecting the system in a way to where you look at the system and you say, okay, if, or not if, but when this part of the system is compromised, what does the attacker gain access to? And how can we mitigate them getting anything else? So you start looking at every individual piece of the system as like, when it's compromised, how do we isolate the attack to that space? Because at some point, something in that system will get compromised. And if you're not thinking that way, then one compromise leads to full access.
So some people are asking about, I guess it's called the Flipper, or it was sold on Amazon for a while.
Yeah.
So I mean, kind of talk about that and devices like that. But I've heard things like if someone is, for example, like remote starting their car and you have the Flipper, you can like, grab their signal from them. And then later on, you can like unlock their car and like start their car and stuff like that. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, and you can think of the Flipper kind of like the internet in general, right? Like back in the 60s, 70s, back when it was ARPANET, before the internet actually existed, it was only like able to be accessed by like highly, highly technical people. It was very specific. And then you moved to dial-up modems, right? Like you weren't able to just get on a dial-up modem and just go get information like on the internet. You had to really know what you were doing and have some technical skill in that area. And then AOL comes along and everybody's grandma can now access the internet and have email, right? I mean, great thing, absolutely amazing, great thing, because it kind of opened the world to people who otherwise wouldn't have access to it because they don't have the technical knowledge. And so, the Flipper, there's been other devices like it in the past. I think they're really great research tools because it basically allows people who are, I don't mean to like insult anybody using a Flipper. I mean, I have one. I think they're great. It makes it easy, right? Like now I don't have to sit there, write my own scripts, like go through all this stuff. I can just download someone else's script on it, boom, and now I have a capability. Right. And so, great little tools. There's been different ones throughout the time, but yeah, like the Flipper is designed to be kind of this open access. What do they call it? Like the Swiss Army knife of hacking, right? So like it's got different chips on it. It can talk Bluetooth. It can talk Wi-Fi. It can, do different types of things. And then you can just drop scripts on it that configure it and gives you a capability to do something. So I think they're pretty cool. I'm surprised they're not outlawed. They're probably outlawed in some countries. I mean, you can't carry lockpicks in certain countries. You get arrested, or even certain states. So I'm surprised like more people haven't banned it yet for that reason.
I think the Flipper actually got banned off of Amazon, if I remember correctly.
Oh, it might have by now, yeah.
Yeah, at least for a period of time it did. I know that. So for this attack, obviously we don't want to tell people exactly how to do it. YouTube, we are not telling people how to do this type of stuff. We are just talking about theoretical situations. How would a nation state hacker initially target a state or country election network?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you really want to do, right? And where you're going to attack, because what we call the attack surface. So the attack surface is made up of all what we would call attack vectors, right? So if I'm going to hack a car, for example, right, like one attack vector would be the OBD2 port, physical access, plug into the car. A remote access vector would be like the cellular link to the telematics. So you got physical, you got remote, all that. Well, same thing. If you look at a voting system, it's a very complex system. There's online databases, there's voter registration, all the way down to the machines that get deployed out, the networks that those sit on, removable media, like removable hard drives and things that's on them, physical ports. So if you remove a certain panel, you've got access to USB or JTAG or like all these different engineering protocols and networking protocols that you can plug in to do stuff, just like an ATM, for example. You would really look at what the attack vector is. Now, if you want to, if all you have, like say you're somebody sitting in mainland China and you want to attack our election system, like you can only access it over the internet. So you got to be able to pivot through systems to get to what you want to get to. Whereas if you are here and you've compromised somebody that has physical access to the devices, or if you could compromise the supply chain. So what chips are in the hardware and where are all those chips made? Asia.
Yeah.
where all of our chips are made. So like, if you know that these chips are being sold and shipped to a specific place, or they're designed and built for a specific thing, and you can compromise those in the supply chain, you have a capability already built in from scratch, like from, basically from the design. Versus like open source type stuff. Like there's been compromises to open source where it's been known that different groups would actually inject vulnerabilities into code on purpose that are in open source libraries. So when those open source libraries get used in defense equipment, voting machines, other things, that capability is there. And so there's a lot of different ways that you could attack it, right? Like it's a very complex thing. I can't just give like a very simple answer. So, you can look at the supply chain. You can go into how they're networked. Like some of the documents actually referenced how voting equipment and systems that were supposed to be on isolated networks were not on isolated networks. And they were on the same networks that, everybody's laptop and email and everything else was running on. So now like that, an attack vector would be do a phishing campaign over email, get somebody that's on that network to click on a link in an email, compromise their machine, and then use that machine that's on that network to then attack the election systems that are sitting on that same network, right?
And a lot of people would say, why would you ever do that? Like, why would you click an email or whatever? But I know from my corporate experience and all the years I was a software engineer, it happened regularly. People would see an email that would say, this is coming from the CEO. This is it has to be, figured out within like the next like 2 or 3 hours. So click this link and fill out your information really quick, and we'll set up a meeting so you can meet with the CEO. And people are like, oh crap, I don't want to get in trouble. And they click it, and then all of a sudden they have access.
And the bigger the company, the more vulnerable you are, because like, for example, in a small startup, like I'm sitting in the same room as everybody else. So everybody knows the CEO. Like I'm literally sitting next to them. They can look at me like, hey, did you send me this email? Like, why are you giving me company financials and asking for my opinion on it? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's because I didn't send it. And that spreadsheet is fake. And it has, by the way, a bug in it, an exploit in it, that when you open it, it's going to install something on your machine. And so in larger companies, that's a lot harder. And especially when you target interns or newly hired people who don't know the org chart. Right. And like, this is what attackers do. Like, if I'm going to go and try to compromise a company, I'm going to go look at like where the weakest link is. And that's going to be interns. It's going to be like new hires that don't know the org chart. It's going to be people in specific fields that aren't technical. And I'm going to craft my message in a way, and it's going to look like it came from the CEO or from somebody else in the organization. And it's going to have a call to action. It's going to have some urgency to it. Like, hey, I'm about to go into this meeting and I really need this piece of information. Like, the list is in this document, open the document, right? And they're like, well, shit, the CEO is about to go into a meeting. Like, he needs this information. I better do it or I'm going to get fired. And so like it creates this urgency, right? And it tugs on some of that squishy wetware stuff in our heads, the human element that in the psychology to get you to do something. And then once you have access, the attacker has access to that machine. Well, now, that's what we call the beachhead, right? Like, first step is done. I've got access. Now I'm going to use that access as a trusted resource on that network to move and pivot to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing until I get to what I want.
So let's talk about that really quick. So, and just for the audience really quick, we are going to get to the Tyler Robinson and the mass surveillance and the cell phones here in a minute. But I want to make sure. So when we're talking about pivoting, that would be like if you were to access, like, say, for example, like if you were to access, for whatever reason, say you like accessed my Ring doorbell and somehow you got into that. And then next you went to like my PC. And then after you got to that, you go to the next step. How do you actually know where you're at in the system? And then how do you, once you get to a certain point, how do you know how to see the next point?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's there's multiple different frameworks out there that you can look at. One's called like the MITRE ATT&CK framework. But basically it's a framework of how like attackers think, right? And like the first step is always recon. Right? Like, you start probing a system, right? Like, if I'm looking at your house, if I'm wanting to gain access, I'll go to your house. Like, I'll take pictures of it. I'll have a high definition camera in my car and very sneakily drive by and image your house or whatever. And I'll see a Ring doorbell. It's like, okay, good. Now I know he's got a Ring doorbell, right? I'm doing recon. If I see a TV antenna up there, okay, he's got a TV antenna, this, that, the other. Like, I'll look for the sticker of, Cox Cable or Metronet or whatever, like sitting on your actual like box where your cable comes into your house to know who your internet provider is. Like, it's just recon. Like, every little piece of information helps me create that attack surface analysis to find out, like, okay, what are the different vectors that I can use to gain access? Right. And then from there, so then you go through the framework, right? So you got recon, you craft your attacks, like you throw your attacks, you gain access. And then once you have that point of presence, you go back to the beginning, you start doing recon again. So say I get access to your PC or to the secretary's laptop, whatever it is, I'm going to drop some tools onto that machine that'll let me port scan or scan all the different IP addresses on the network. And I'll resolve them. And these tools are pretty smart, right? Like, you can do Nmap scans, you can do stuff, and it'll tell you like, oh, that's a Raspberry Pi, that's a Ring doorbell, that's a smart TV, that's a this, that's a that, right? And then you can even sometimes even get software versions off of things. It's like, okay, so that's a smart TV running this version. Or there's another tool that then you can start probing the TV and get some of that information from it. Because again, a lot of these things, like, they offer all this stuff up in like, headers and stuff in the actual network packets that get sent. So it's called fingerprinting, right? So you're doing this recon, you're fingerprinting all the devices, you're figuring out like, what is it, what software version's it running? And then you can go to your database and be like, is there an exploit for that? Like, let me go grab an exploit for that. Go to the dark web. Is there an exploit out there? I can just spend $1,000 and buy an exploit, whatever it is. Get the exploit or craft it yourself, right? Like, go download the software package, the firmware update to that version, reverse engineer it, find a bug and write your own exploit for it. So a lot of different ways, right? But then you can go and exploit that system. And now you're in that system. And what does that give me? Well, your smart TV happens to have a microphone. Some of them have cameras. Now I can see inside your room. I can see your browsing patterns. I know when you use the TV. I know when you're not. I know what you're watching. Oh, and by the way, you love Law and Order. Right? Like, I'm making this up. I don't know, Matt, if you do, like, you might be like an old school Law and Order fan or whatever, Blue Bloods, whatever it is. Right. But I'm going to figure out what your watching patterns are. Then next time you're at the bar, I might be sitting next to you and I might just drop a reference, just like mentions a character like, oh man, that's kind of like what Joe Blow would do, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wait a minute, Joe Blow? Like, you watch Law and Order and now we're best friends.
Social engineering.
Dude, this is counterintelligence 101, right? And so like, it all plays together. And that's just pivoting. And so then once I have access to you, now I can start just dropping other little hints. I'm now your best friend. I find out you like golf. We go start playing golf. We have a few too many to drink. And I start asking you about what you do every day. I happen to know where you work. That's why I was targeting you. And now you're drunk. Right. And now you just happen to mention something like, oh yeah, like we just had this big shipment go to Ukraine. Well, now I know that your company just shipped a big shipment to Ukraine. And like, it's just how intelligence operates, right? I don't know. I might have gone a little crazy on that answer, but did that answer your question on like pivoting through networks?
Yeah, it did. And I can see people on chat are like, oh, that's creepy, that's scary, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is the world we live in, and most people are not exposed. They don't know about any of this. And maybe it's good that a lot of people don't know about this stuff because, like you said, a lot of people would freak out about it.
Well, people in the defense world, like we're required to take certain training, and like counterintelligence is one of them. Like, how are people going to try to gain access to you and get information out of you? And they are very, very well trained. Like, good luck, right? Like you got to be really good, and it makes you paranoid. It does. Like, you're sitting in a bar and some just like, oh man, did you see that goal? It's like, don't talk to me. You're a spy. Like, it makes you a little paranoid sometimes. But I mean, it happens, and it happens all the time. And like, there are literally organizations that are out there in the US government, and that's all they do is generate training and come out and tell you like, these are the latest things that were happening, and this is how they were doing it. Like, be aware. Have you seen anything like that? Like, report it, please. Because that just means there's foreign operatives, trying to exploit, the defense industrial base and things like that. It is very, very creepy. But like, when you start digging into the world of intelligence and counterintelligence, like, Just like when you start digging into cybersecurity and exploitation and hacking and stuff, like when you realize how vulnerable we are, you kind of just want to buy that shack in Montana and live off grid for the rest of your life, hopefully peacefully. Like the most you have to deal with is bears, not anything else.
Now, people are asking about VPNs. So a lot of people use, I mean, I know people that use VPNs to watch like French television, because they have to get access to that network to get to those streams. And then obviously other people use VPN to try and mask their location or whatever it may be. We've seen a lot of stuff recently in the Charlie Kirk case where it appears that the VPN is pointing to other nations outside the US that may have searched certain people in regards to the case. So how does a VPN work? And is there a way to use a VPN to avoid some of these issues we've talked about?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can think of a VPN as like a tunnel or a hose, right? Like you're going to basically connect to some remote system. You're going to create an encrypted tunnel, and then everything going on and off of your computer should go through that pipe. So when you search the net, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. When you type in www.google.com, right? Your computer doesn't know what google.com is, right? So it does like a DNS request. It does all these different things behind the scenes to go figure out what is Google. And then how do I find it? What is its address? How do I make my way through the internet to get to Google and return that information back to this machine? Well, all of that traffic should be going through that VPN. So it looks like, from Google's perspective, it looks like you're sitting wherever that other side of that VPN is. And so, one way that, this is actually really big in pornography right now. I don't know if you've been following the news and stuff, but there's been some recent laws and stuff passed in Congress that they have to verify age, or certain states, sorry, not in Congress, but certain states have now laws that you have to do like age verification for anybody wanting to access certain websites. And so what'll happen is, like California, a couple other ones, they don't have those laws. So people will create VPNs to California, so it looks like they're in California, so then they can access sites that are technically banned in other states. Things like that. So exactly the same thing. So you can get a VPN to make it look like you're in Europe, make it look like you're in Africa, wherever else. Like you can literally just go online and sign up for it and buy it. It's pretty easy. But so what that does, that just encrypts the tunnel, right? That doesn't anonymize you, because your computer is still fingerprintable. Your browser is fingerprintable. Like that basically means like your computer has a unique fingerprint. So like if somebody on the other side of that VPN is seeing your traffic, they'll know who you are, right? They can fingerprint you. And then so there's that piece. Well, then
okay,
go ahead.
So in that vein, all right. So someone asked a question on this, but I'm also curious too. So in that vein, we're talking about like fingerprinting and being able to identify things on the network based on, the ID that it gets or the fingerprint that it gets. So in the Charlie Kirk case, we have a couple of things. We have the phone of Tyler Robinson, which I don't know if he brought it with him or not, but we did see it. It appears to be, when he got arrested, it appears to be in the room that they were filming, where he was kind of like being held. It looks like he has it and puts it in his pocket. They have some footage around campus at UVU that he appears to be on it, maybe texting someone, then puts it in his pocket. So we see it in multiple different places. So his phone is one question. How would they track that, and how accurate would it be? And then the second question would be around Discord messages. So they have a set of Discord messages where he's supposedly admitting to the crime. Basically, he's like saying, I did it, and I'm sorry, guys, or whatever type of thing. So I guess first question is with the phone, how accurate is it? And then how does it actually track him, even if he has like GPS turned off, for example?
Yeah, there's different ways of tracking cell phones. And we'll go with like the easiest one, and that's triangulation. So whenever your phone is talking, over cellular, it's talking to different cellular towers, right? And like that's how you do the wireless thing. Like your phone communicates to the tower turns it into fiber optics, and off it goes, or SATCOM or different ways. But the time that it's a very known problem. It's called triangulation. If you look it up, like RF hunting, like radio frequency hunting and all that stuff. So basically, if you have 3 or more towers, you can actually measure the time that it takes for the signal to go back and forth to each of the different towers. And then you can use that time to basically pinpoint where somebody is. Like it's just, that's how location finding is done through RF. One of the ways anyway. And so like you can triangulate that. Now those records are stored by the phone company. Like you don't need access to their phone. Like literally all you need to know is like their cell phone number or a cell phone ID. It's called like a MZ or a TIMZ. It's like the actual ID of your SIM card that's on your phone. And then you can use that. The cell phone companies can use that to actually track your location. And that's been used all over the place. Like there was this big case, Casey Anthony in Florida. She was charged with killing her daughter. And they were using those phone record, the cell phone triangulation from the cell phone companies to show where she went at different times on different days, which bars she was at and things like that. So it was kind of a big thing. And this is 15, 20 years ago now. So they could have used that. Now, there's a lot of other ways you can track people's cell phones if you have sensors in the area. Like, for example, if you have Wi-Fi sniffers. So a lot of people don't know this, but like when you connect your phone to your home Wi-Fi network or your work's Wi-Fi network or the cafe down the street or whatever else, your phone stores that as like a known network, right? And like on your computer, you can actually go in and look at all the known networks that you've connected to with your laptop. Well, it's constantly beaconing out, like looking for those SSIDs. It's looking for those networks. And I can collect that. Like anybody with just a Wi-Fi sniffer can very easily collect that. And then there's these online databases that people built by what they call war driving. So basically people have just driven around with software running, looking at every Wi-Fi SSID and where it's located. And then it just goes into this online database. So then I can basically go in and say, okay, off of Matt's phone, these are all the SSIDs that it was pinging for. And now I know the location of every single one of those SSIDs if it's in that database. So now I know where you work. I know where you live. I know like what cafe you like to go to. Like very, very easily done. Like this is not hard stuff. And that's just, sorry, go ahead.
So what about Bluetooth?
There's similar type things on Bluetooth, especially now with these, what do they call it? It's like advertisements over Bluetooth. So like there's all these communications with things. And if there's the right sensor in the right place, it'll know who you are. So it can serve ads to you for whatever business is nearby. Huge invasion of privacy, right? A huge invasion, but hey, it's what it is. It's just how the technology works. And you agree to it when you buy the phone. You don't even know you're agreeing to it, but yeah, you're basically tracked. Like the idea of anonymity and privacy, it's just a joke. It just doesn't exist.
Now, what about this? So like in Ukraine, there were soldiers who got hit even though their phone was off. They got hit by drones because they were able to track something while the phone was off. Do you know what that thing is? So
I think it's specific to different phones. I don't know exactly what it is, but just because you turn your phone off doesn't mean it's off. It's still running something. There's still processing going on the device. It's like in a low power mode, just like when you turn your car off. Like, I don't know if you notice, like in modern day vehicles, like if you've got a modern day vehicle, when you walk up to it, just listen really, really closely. Because as you get close, your fuel pump turns on. Things in the car start waking up. Why? So that way, as soon as you climb in, oh yeah, when you climb in and you push the button to start, you notice like the old days, like you and I are old enough, we remember this stuff. Some of the younger audience, they might not remember this. You had to put a key into the car and turn it and like wait while your engine starts cranking. Well, what was happening while that was happening was like you put the key and you turn it, it applies power to the fuel pump. Fuel puts pressure on the line, starts pumping fuel to the, to the engine, to the carburetor. And then it'll start. So like you had to crank the engine a few times to give the system time to get fuel to where it needed to go. Well, you don't have the cranking anymore. You just push a button and magic happens. Well, unless you have an electric vehicle, in which case like that thing's on all the time. It's always running something. But yeah, so like, yeah, your fuel pump turns on, like different parts of the car will start waking up. So as soon as you sit in and you press that button, all the computers are on, engine starts up and you're ready to drive away in literally seconds. So things are happening behind the scenes, even when the screen is off and you think it's off and you turned it off and you walked away from your car, it's still doing stuff, right? Like, for example, like all these modern day cars, you can push updates to their software. It's called firmware over the air. So like Tesla's like absolutely like got this figured out, right? Like your Tesla's sitting in the driveway, they're pushing software updates to it all the time. Same thing with any other modern day vehicle. They can push updates to it. They can update your software. Whenever they find bugs, they can push stuff to it. And it's just happening. Well, your car's off. How could they access your car when your car's turned off? It's never truly off. Like pull the battery cable and then wait maybe like 6 to 12 hours for all the capacitors to drain. Then you're probably safe saying that it's off. But like pull the battery on your iPhone. You can't. You don't have access to the battery anymore. It's all within the phone. You got to destroy the phone in order to get to the battery. Well, you don't destroy the phone, but you got to disassemble it. You're not going to do it on the fly before you walk into a cafe. So it is what it is on that one.
So if someone had to choose Android versus iPhones, just for like neither one is safe. They can both be exploited. But which one, if you had to choose for yourself? I mean, you have an iPhone. Do you feel like iPhone is safer and more secure than an Android? Or do you know that they're both equally insecure, so you just pick one that you like?
Well, they're definitely both insecure, but they're also both secure, right? Like I said, there's no perfect security. But both from a security perspective, they're damn good, right? Like if a nation state wants to get in, if the NSA wants to get in, the CIA wants to get in, the FSB, formerly the KGB, if China wants to get in, like they're going to get in. It's just a matter of time. Like it is what it is. But generally speaking, I think modern day Android and Apple are both very comparable. It just boils down to user preference at that point. Now, also remember there's a different side to it, right? Every time you get a smartphone, you are literally giving up your data. Like Apple's recording everything. Google's recording everything. Absolutely. Your car is recording everything. Every modern day car has a cellular modem in it, records where you go, when you're there, what you do, how you drive, all of it. And you consent to it when you buy it. It's all in the fine print. So, that's why I'm kind of like, I think it's really funny when people like out there screaming about like privacy and like anonymity and not being tracked and all this stuff while they're carrying an iPhone in their pocket or an Android in their pocket, right? Like you've already consented to give up all of your data to corporate America. But you're complaining about this over here. Like that doesn't make any sense. But again, like it's so convenient. You can't exist in today's modern world without us. Have you ever met anybody that doesn't carry a cell phone? You'd be like, dude, you're a weirdo. Like what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Like everybody's got one.
Yeah, I think there was a comedian, I can't remember who it was, but he made the joke. He said, take any adult, and he said, have them set down their cell phone and walk a mile away or walk around the corner and just watch them not have a huge panic attack because you're just not connected to everything everywhere. Part of it's probably the dopamine, right? It's becomes like a dependency. You're so used to it, and it gives you, I guess, joy or just the fact you can know the messages and that kind of stuff. You feel connected, you feel important, and as soon as that's taken away, it causes problems. That's a whole different stream, but yeah, very important information. Now, I want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, that's very, very true, and I challenge everybody to do that from time to time, especially if you're married or have a significant other. Like my wife and I, like one time. We were on vacation and we left our hotel, like our phones in the hotel room, and we spent half the day out without them. And I'll tell you, for a little while, it was a little uncomfortable. Best experience, man. Like you got to do it. Just leave it home, go out and just be in that moment. It's amazing.
Yeah. I don't think, like you said, a lot of people that are, younger, they didn't get to experience things like we did. Like we drove in the back of pickup trucks without seatbelts in the bed of the truck.
Good old days.
Cops would see you drive by and just wave at the kids, Yeah, we had a lot more risk back then. But
yeah, exactly. Everybody today is soft.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't know what it's like to get thrown out of a truck.
And testosterone's down. There's a lot of estrogen in the environment. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I did want to talk about the Discord messages. So part of this case is the Discord messages, and it sounds like maybe some of the planning, or at least the supposedly the admission, was in a Discord server. I know Discord servers in the past. I had one for a while. I got rid of it because I heard that like Ukraine and other countries will routinely hack into them and do whatever they want to do. And then I know recently a buddy of mine who had a pretty good size one, it got hacked and taken over, and he got kicked out of his own Discord. So what's the chances that, or how could it happen that a Discord server, maybe someone could like take over his account or something similar and post on his behalf? Is that possible with a hack, or would someone have to actually physically log into his account and post, or maybe have his phone and log in, into Discord from his phone or something similar?
Well, so all the above, like all the above is possible, right? Like if they have the person's phone, I mean, that's an easy one, right? Like if you have somebody's phone and their passcode, I mean, it's game over. You can pretty much access anything if you've got their passcode, password or whatever. I mean, like for me, like I've got many different apps that have saved my login information. So as long as you know the key code to my phone and you can unlock my phone, you could just open up any of them and just start chatting as if you were me, like all of our business apps and everything. Now, because it basically saves credentials. So like when you log in, it's like cookies and stuff like on your browser and in your laptop. Like it basically saves like a session ID and a session token. So then like it knows who you are and you're considered trusted at that point. You can compromise the system just like any of the other things we were talking about. If you compromise a Discord server, I mean, and it's one of those like to generate these types of attacks. Like it's not like the old days where it's super, super easy, right? So you're only like nation states are only going to use it like when it really, really matters, right? Like if I'm China and I spent like $5 million to create some exploits to get into an iPhone, I'm not using that against, grandma. They're like, you risk losing a $5 million or more capability for grandma, right? No, I'm going to use that against a president. I'm going to use that against the CEO of a major corporation that I want to attack and like do corporate espionage on, things like that. Like you're not going to just burn stuff. And that's why like everyday citizens, like if you're just a lawfaring modern day citizen, you don't really have that much to worry about in terms of like foreign exploitation because you're not a target. Now, if you start getting clearances, if you start getting high level positions in like prominent companies, things like that, then yeah, you become a pretty big target. But like specifically back to that, like if they're trying to compromise Discord to sow misinformation or whatever it is, yeah, I mean, if you got access to the phone, if you have access to Discord, there's another thing that you can do that a lot of people don't realize. They're called like personal access tokens. And so like, I know Discord specifically has these, like GitHub has them and different things where you can like, if you have access to somebody's account, you can go in and create a token. And then if you have that token, you can just access it as if you're that person.
Would that be like the single sign-on, or is that different?
Very, very, very similar. So like what it is, like what we use it for, like in the development world for like GitHub is every time I want to check code in or like get code out or like work on my source code, I don't want to have to keep typing my password in over and over and over, right? So I'll generate a token, store it on my laptop. And then anytime I want to do any of that stuff, it just reads that token and gives me access because it knows who I am because I have that token. If you have that token, you can literally act as if you're me. Now you'd have to get access to that token somehow. So you'd have to have access to my laptop, or you'd have to like capture it in transit, break the encryption, or you just have to gain access to it in one way or the other, right? But if you have that token, then you are essentially me in the eyes of Discord or GitHub or ChatGPT, Claude, like there's tokens for all of them.
So if someone had, let's say Tyler Robinson, say someone was able to access Tyler Robinson's token, they don't have to be on his machine or in his app on his phone or anything like that. They could be anywhere, use that token, and it would look like it's him.
If you're just looking at the Discord message, yes. If you are looking at the statistics and stuff that Discord is tracking behind the scenes, then it gets a little bit foggier, right? Like if you know what IP address it came from, right? Like if Tyler Robinson's, I'm just going to go down that thread. If his phone has an IP address 1.2.3.4, right? Like Discord can see that. when they're connecting and using the token. And if that message gets sent from 5.6.7.8, I would know it's not him, or his IP address changed. One or the other.
Now, could they use a VPN to spoof his IP address?
Not a VPN. There are ways of spoofing IP addresses. There's ways of spoofing so there's different layers, right? So like IP address is at like mid-level of the networking stack. And below that, you'd have like MAC addresses. I don't know if you've ever heard of like a MAC address. It looks like a bunch of hexadecimal characters, and stuff. But, every piece of Wi-Fi hardware has a MAC address assigned to it. You can change it. You can spoof it. Right. So like if I wanted to pretend to be a Wi-Fi hotspot, I would spoof the MAC address, the SSID, and all the things to make myself look like that Wi-Fi hotspot to get you to connect to it. So I can then start man-in-the-middling your traffic and things like that. And so there's ways of spoofing those things, but the deeper and deeper you go, the harder and harder it gets. Right. Like if you're just like a 15-year-old kid in mom's basement with ChatGPT, like you're going to be able to do some level of spoofing, and it's probably going to be pretty good. If you're a nation state, man, that's going to be really hard, really, really hard to like unwrap that from a forensic standpoint and like really know what ground truth is. Doable. But remember, like when you put that amount of resources into an attack, you got to have equal or more resources behind the forensics and the defense in order to like really piece together what that attack looked like. It's not like in the movies, right? Like it's not like in the movies where we've got like these holographic displays and someone sitting there using their hands to swim through data and boom, something pops up. Like I can't wait for those days. That's going to be amazing. It's actually really, really hard and takes a very, very long time.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because this might be important to the case later. What information would you say would be required to verify with metadata, I would assume, and anything else, that the messages that were in his phone, like his text messages and stuff, as well as the Discord messages, are actually legitimately from him and are his? So if in court, if there's a forensic person sitting there and they say, yeah, we have these texts in his phone, he says he did it. What can they look at behind the scenes that you would expect would be the bare minimum to say, okay, this is legitimate. This is real?
Yeah, I'm going to have to speculate a little bit because I'm not fully familiar with like the back end of Apple's stack for like iMessage and things like that. But so I'm going to speak generally. So, the guy who designed iMessage for Apple is probably going to hear this and be like, dude, like you're off a little bit. So like, just take a little bit of this as just a little bit of speculation and stuff. But, iMessage is supposed to be encrypted end to end. And no one else, even Apple, claims that they're not supposed to have that key. So like when I start an iMessage with you, for example, our phones like communicate and say, okay, this is our secret key that only us two are going to have. No one else can decrypt that message. I personally think that is probably broken, to be honest. There's probably a backdoor in that. The US government has constantly pushed Apple and other providers to put backdoors in it so they can subpoena and access that information. Yeah. And it's always been this like First Amendment fight, right? Personally, I think it's broken. Do I have specific data or anything behind that? No, it's just a gut feeling just on my own that there's backdoors and stuff in that, but could be wrong. So you would need to have those that encryption key to be able to encrypt and decrypt those messages back and forth. Now, that being said, if you have access to the phone physically, or if you exploit the phone remotely, you have access to that token. You can even originate the message from that phone, even though I'm remote. And I'm going to make this up. I don't commit crimes. I'm a legitimate guy. But like, say I've exploited your phone, and I can sit here on my laptop through the tunnel that I have to your phone. I could send a text message as if it were you through an iMessage channel, and it would look like it came from you because it did. It came from your phone. But I would have to have access to your phone. So like step one is, in part of that attack framework, would be exploit your phone and gain access to your phone and have, root level access to your phone so I can access all the things and do that from your phone. Doable. Absolutely doable. Takes a lot of resources, but it's doable.
Hmm. So I think everyone that's watching this right now is probably going to go home and unplug everything and and take a vacation for a couple days so all the capacitors empty out. Yeah, this is and like you said, a lot of this stuff was possible like a decade plus ago.
Easier, easier a
Yeah,
decade ago.
yeah,
Because, like a lot of times, like a lot of things are changing with cybersecurity, right? Like a lot more people and companies are designing systems with cybersecurity in mind. But, back in like the old days, I say the old days, but I mean, literally 10, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. Like security was always an afterthought. Like we called it bolt-on security. Like you'd build something and then you'd bolt security on top of it. Doesn't work as well. Like you got to design systems with security in mind from the very beginning. We're doing that now. But there's still a lot of legacy systems out there. There's still a lot of old technology I don't think a lot of people understand this, but go out and buy a car today, a brand new car, buy a 2027 vehicle. There are parts in that car that are 10 years old.
yeah. That's terrible.
That were designed 10 years ago because, like GM, Toyota, Audi, whoever, they build a part and then they want to use it for 10, 15 years to like make more revenue on it, like to offset the cost of the development of the part. If they designed a brand new ECU every single year, like your car would cost $50 million, it'd just be too expensive. And so even though you have a brand new system, a brand new device, it's probably running stuff in it that was developed 5-10 years ago. I mean, there's jokes out there that there's open source packages of software that was written 20 years ago that's still holding the internet together. It's like it's still out there and it's still being used because it works.
How serious is supply chain risk? Because that's something that obviously we haven't gotten into Fleet Defender, but your main business that you're the CEO of, the main thing you work on now is like fleet, like semis and logistics and that kind of stuff. And you do like the cybersecurity and AI and like hardware and stuff around that, correct?
Yeah.
So how serious is supply chain risk from foreign made hardware and software components? Because we've heard that our electrical grid, for example, is compromised because we have a bunch of Chinese parts that they can remotely kill or maybe, detonate allegedly or something similar. Do you know much about that? And then how could they exploit that with software?
Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar problem. And the reason I say that is because we know that, right? Like go look at the CHIPS Act and some of these other things that have been passed in Congress over the last 5-10 years. We're trying to bring all chip manufacturing back into the United States. Like we used to own it, decades ago. And now all semiconductors and chips, like the things that run our phones, our cars, like that run in all electronics, they're all made in China, Taiwan, countries over there where it's kind of far away and questionable governments run those and have access to them. And so, we've seen things, again, all public information. Go out, Google it. You can look it up. You can go down the rabbit hole. Like I'm not saying anything that's like proprietary information or classified, but there have been many cases of supply chain compromise where there's devices where there's a chip under a chip and that chip's not supposed to be there, right? Like if you just look at the circuit card, it looks legitimate, but you start taking parts off and there's hidden parts underneath that shouldn't be there. I mean, that's just supply chain compromise, like right from the start. I think last time we talked a little bit about how like you can actually move that down into the chip itself. And the only way you're going to find that is by destroying the chip and acid etching off layer by layer of silicon and imaging it with like electron microscopes and looking at actual transistors to see if what was built is actually what you designed. And you literally cannot do that because you destroy the chip and now you destroy the device and you can't really do that. And so it's possible. It's happening today. It's a very, very big problem. And they're trying to fix it, right? They're trying to bring silicon fabrication back into the United States where we have just better control over the security of those processes.
Yeah, but can we afford it? Can we afford to have that? It's
there's a lot of companies that as part of the CHIPS Act and some of these other things that are going on, they have government incentives and they're putting forth money too to bring it back in. Like, it's a big problem when this shouldn't happen, but there's defense equipment where there's actual like lines of code running in weapon systems that was written in mainland China, like through shell company, right? Like that's not supposed to happen. And you know, and since then, in recent years, the defense industrial base and the US government has done a really good job at like getting in there and really understanding and trying to prevent a lot of that from happening. But still great. We brought all of the software back into the United States. We have software being written by US citizens. Fantastic. It's all running on hardware and chips made in an adversarial nation.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very big problem. Like it's a very, very hard problem. Very expensive one.
Yeah, let's so some people are asking about data centers. I know we have a lot here in Nebraska. I know we have Meta. I believe there's an Amazon. I think there's 13 just in like the Omaha area. So and they're going up everywhere. And I know there's some that are massive, like several square miles and things like that. The chips, like you said, the chips are being made by adversarial companies and they are obsolete very quickly. I've also heard that because of the high processing power that's required in them, especially the GPUs, the graphic, graphic ones, that they're not going to last long. So you would basically need an entire corporation just to keep up with the data center's chips and the data center's graphic cards and things like that. And they might last a year or two. But you had an interesting take on data centers. So a lot of people see them as like AI, basically AI, like ChatGPT, Claude, that kind of stuff would be powered by these data centers. And also for war, obviously, there'd be a war, like a warfare aspect of them, I guess. But what's your take on the data centers and if they're really actually an issue or beneficial?
Well, it depends on what lens we're looking at. Like, are they beneficial to our climate and like the Earth's ecosystem? Probably not.
In the water,
Are they absolutely required to make sure that America can maintain dominance over the next 100 years? 100%. We should just keep building more and more and more of them. You know, so it just depends on what lens that you look at it through and what is most important to you. Like, do you care if China is the dominant power and runs, you know, all of society for the next 200 years? Then yeah, protect the environment. Stop. Well, that's terrible because they're very terrible for the environment. So probably actually that's bad, right? Like, they won't be good for it either. But yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like data centers are around for a lot of different reasons. Like I think we were talking like a big part of the Meta data center here in town is to store images that haven't been viewed for over 365 days. It's literally cold storage for images that you have not accessed or looked at for over a year. An entire data center, like acres and acres of concrete and processing and storage just to house people's images from Facebook and Instagram that they haven't looked at in over a year. Like, and so that's crazy, right? But on the other hand, some data centers are just massive GPU compute that powers all of Claude and ChatGPT and other similar types of companies. And there's already, you know, massive shortages in, you know, GPU compute out there right now. Like we need more and more for the demand that's out there. And so, yeah, I think for us to maintain American dominance in the world, we cannot throttle back on AI. And
so we have,
go ahead.
So obviously, you know, a lot of people don't realize this too. So in the US, we have data centers going up, but it's also happening in Europe. It's happening in Russia, in China, North Korea. So yeah, I think you're right. It's just how do you do it in a way, because basically what's happening is it's going so fast right now that, like you said, there's the environmental impact, and then how do you retrofit that later to make it healthy, right?
Right.
And that's going to be a major issue. Just like the nuclear power plants, you know, they throw them up, and then they decommission them, which, by the way, takes like several years, sometimes like a decade or more to decommission a nuclear power plant correctly. And the ones that I've seen are always leaking something, right? Like there's one in Fort Calhoun in Nebraska. It's been shut down for years. It's still leaking cesium-123 into the water supply. You know,
that's always fun.
Yeah, there's always something. But
yeah,
I think it's important, but I think it's also causing a lot of issues. And I think a lot of people think it's going to take away jobs. You know, you have so actually, yeah, give us that. But what's your take on AI and job availability and things like that in the next like 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. You know, at our companies, we've gone through a major transformation over the last 6 months where we've gone. I hate buzzwords, but you got to use them, like AI native or AI first. You know, whatever you want to call it, but basically means we have embedded AI in every single job function throughout the entire organization. Right. And, you know, we've seen some major companies, like even Mark Zuckerberg came out, this is probably 12 months ago, and he said he expected, I don't remember the number, 75, 80% of all code to be generated by AI within, you know, like within the whole meta universe and stuff. And so it is kind of a complete shift in a dynamic. And this happened very, very quickly. And I think that's what scares a lot of people, is just how quickly things are changing. But, you know, if we didn't innovate, if we didn't, everybody thought the Industrial Revolution was going to put everybody out of a job. It didn't. Did jobs change? Yes. Did the world look very differently? Yes. But ultimately, like, people still had jobs. They just changed. I think it's the same thing. Like the computer age did the same thing, right? Like when computers came out, did everybody who used a typewriter, were they out of a job and did they start starving? No, they just started doing it on a computer instead. You know, it's like, do we still need writers? Yeah, AI doesn't do a very good job at writing. I mean, it does okay, but I mean, you could spot it a mile away and nobody wants to interface with it because it just sounds fake. But so then you have humans, you know, but you can do research, you can do all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, I think it is going to offset jobs. I think there is going to be a period where the economy is going to be in a very interesting place as society kind of figures out what's next. But what's really interesting, I was reading about this. AI has actually made what used to be I'm going to get so much hate from this, but what made a mostly useless degree extremely relevant again, and that's philosophy. And so, like, if you're really good and you're a philosophy major, like, you can get hired at some of these AI companies for like lucrative amounts of money, because they need philosophy majors to help teach AI how to think like humans, how to have a value system like humans, ethics and morals. And like, how do you actually do that? So like, what used to be one of those degrees where it's like, you're a philosophy major, you're not going to make any money. They're making more than computer science degrees now, like when they're working at these AI companies. And so I think that's a good testament. Like, are things going to change? Absolutely. Is it going to be scary? Absolutely. And I think it's even scarier because it's happening even faster, like faster than ever before, right? Like in the Industrial Revolution, like you had one factory go up and then you'd have another factory, and it took years to like convert these factories over into like machines and this and that. Like today, like if you think about it, ChatGPT's only been around for like 5 years. I don't know the exact time, like 5-6 years or something like that. And most people weren't using it until around ChatGPT like 3.0. And that was a year and a half ago. And so it's accelerating so fast. And so you don't really have time to think through, what's the impact? What does this mean for society? What does this mean for people? What does this mean for this? What does it mean for that? And so it is scary. But our adversaries are not slowing down. And in fact, they're just pressing the gas pedal and they're accelerating even faster. And if we try to stop, if we try to slow down and answer those questions, we will lose this race. And whoever wins this race will be the dominant power for the next, maybe ever.
And you've seen a lot of this stuff firsthand when you were working for defense contractors and that kind of stuff. So you have a little bit different angle than some of us. I know some people are thinking like, oh, this is like government propaganda or something like that, but it's going to become reality. Last thing we want is, like we're this powerful, we're supposed to be the most powerful nation in the world with the most powerful military. But if you let China or North Korea or Russia get an AI leg up with their military over ours, they could have a military, a fifth the size. They could take ours out because they have AI powered behind it. So I understand.
Yeah, it's asymmetrical warfare.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at what happened in the Ukraine and like with these really low cost drones, like even in Iran, like how many of our Reapers did they bring down with their drones and stuff? I mean, we're talking $15 to $30 million weapon system brought down by maybe a couple $1,000 drone. I mean, that's asymmetric, right? Like you cannot win that war if you're on our side of it. We can't put that kind of money in. Like, if you're dropping a $500,000, if you're dropping $1 million bomb on something to blow it up and it costs, $1,000 to build, man, the enemy's going to win. Like if you start scaling that up and you look at like a war of attrition, we're going to lose. Like we don't have that kind of money. And so especially if you look at like a Predator that's going to take, years to build versus a drone that they can slap together in a factory and throw out the door. So warfare is changing, not just because of AI, but also because of all the different other aspects like the drones. That's a super big one right now. Space dominance and space warfare is becoming, a big game changer and stuff in that area too. And so, but yeah, AI is powering a lot of this. AI powered everything, right? Like at some point we're going to stop talking about AI because AI is literally just everywhere. And so like, if you talk about a phone, of course you're talking about AI. Talk about a drone or a weapon system. Of course there's AI. Like we don't need to say AI anymore because it's everywhere.
It's the norm.
Like saying oxygen. Like we know oxygen is everywhere we go. It has to be. So, but we don't talk about it because it's just ubiquitous.
Now, I have a question for you because I've argued this with some people before. Is there a difference between AI and a wizard? So, like, if you think about the old days, they used to call the wizard. It would have a little chat box. You would say something, and based on what you type in there, it would have a pre-programmed set of answers and things to give back to you. And now we're doing the same thing, only that thing has access to more information. Is AI truly able to think for itself? Or like you said, is it just a fancy version of like a wizard?
So that's an interesting question because I think what you're going towards there is AGI, which is, it's generalized intelligence. Like, can it think for itself? And there's you see some headlines every now and then where it's like researcher proves that AI has consciousness. There's a lot of gotchas and a lot of this and that behind it, right? I don't believe it. Will we get there? Maybe. Is it possible? Probably. But like, are we there today? Probably not. I think it can fake it really, really well.
That's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, everybody thinks that like ChatGPT is using logic and there's some level of logic and stuff built into it, but they're just super fancy word predictors. And by that, like you're talking about over 1 trillion dimensions of like data in these vectors, like, vectorized data. So it's very, very good. Very, very good. To the point to where, it feels like when you said wizard, I was thinking like magic, like, it's absolutely magic, right? Like there's maybe like 3 people ever in existence that actually truly understands how it works. And they probably don't really actually know. Like it really is kind of magic, but they're just super fancy word predictors. Very, very good ones.
Yeah, if you need a drink, go ahead and grab it. Don't hesitate there. All right, let's look at some of these questions here. We have Brian Swope. He says, when a person moves, how do we get off of the old voter rolls?
That's a good question. I think a lot of times, I thought it was automated, to be honest, but it probably isn't. That's probably the scary thing is when you move, the state should have something to like update it. But every time you go to like the DMV, well, at least for me, like in Nebraska and Florida, both where I've moved, when I go to get my driver's license, like there's a question there. It's like, do you want to register to vote? So that at least gets me on the new ones. I don't know how it falls off the old ones, to be honest.
Let's see. Brian Swope also said, thanks for the super chat, Brian. He says, scary stuff. My coffee pot is watching me.
And your toaster.
And refrigerator.
That's right.
Ivan is Ivan. Thanks for the super chat and being a channel member as well. As a CISSP and CEH, I believe nearly anything is digitally possible, air-gapped or not, with sufficient resources, expertise, and access. Trump is releasing this now due to midterms. I love my flipper, but my Nyan box is awesome.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, everything's politically motivated. Midterms are coming up, so there's a lot of things, on the horizon. I think with the documents, I would have really liked to see more information released and declassified, so that way we have access to it. I think we overclassify a lot of things that probably doesn't need to be. and transparency for, the American people. I think it should be there with the government. So I agree. And so if Ivan's got the CISSP and the CEH, like he's in the world, like he knows what's going on. And I'm glad that he loves his flipper.
Yeah, I was trying to get my hands on one of those, but like I said, when I went to look for them, Amazon was like, nope.
Yeah, they're interesting.
Let's see. Ivan is Ivan. Thanks for another super. The best hacks are not digital. They are human, aka social engineering. LinkedIn is a hacker's paradise. CEO are a great access point. Deep fakes are becoming easier. I actually haven't heard much about deep fakes lately. Have you? I think like initially they came out, people were having fun with them, making everyone like, making like Arnold Schwarzenegger be Mary Poppins and stuff like that, like really good use of it. So
I know they're out there. I think there's been a lot of crackdown on them because of the abuse and stuff that you can do with them. It is a very scary thing, but I love his comment there that the best hacks are human. So we call that like attacking the wetware. You got hardware, software, and wetware, and wetware is humans. And it's the easiest thing. It's a lot easier than software and hardware.
Brian Swope, thanks for another super chat. I might have to sleep in the yard away from everything tonight. Yeah, I'm actually actually a quick question for you. In your time that you spent in defense contracting and that kind of stuff, and technically you kind of still are when you're with Raytheon and that kind of stuff, is it true that the technology that we have available to us today is significantly behind what's available?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's there was a really good documentary. I think it was on the F-22 and the run up to that, where they had I think it was PBS or somebody. They had video teams with the two teams. It was either like Boeing and Lockheed Martin or something like that. But anyway, the long story short, one of the executives at Lockheed Martin was doing an interview at the very end of it, and I love this line that he said, and it's so true. And it's like what you see out there right now, declassified, in operation, that the public has access to. We have 50 years of technology more advanced in operation right now. Like that's crazy if you think about that.
That's almost a full generation.
It is. And I mean, and you can even see it in just everything like LG and Samsung and like smart TVs and all like the TV technology and the display technology. They have multi-years of versions of that technology already available, like already developed, but they're not selling it because if you're at version 1, why would you sell version 5 next? When I can sell you version 2, 3, and 4 and make money on those and then 5, right? Like, so it's in their best interest from a revenue standpoint to not have these massive jumps in technology. Now, the second a competitor says, I'm releasing this, then of course they got to release it, right? So I'm sure like there's this whole shell game and behind the scenes, probably illegal conversations going on when things are going to release and what price points are going to be set at and stuff. But they already have it out there. It's already developed. It's already in existence. They're just not going to sell it yet. And so we can kind of see it in the commercial world and the defense world. Like if you look at the B-2 bomber, there's videos back in the 40s and 50s of them experimenting with wing designed aircraft. And then they're like, oh, well, this isn't very aerodynamic. We can't make it work. It kind of sucks. So we're just going to cancel the program. Nah, they just classified it, developed it out. We're using it operationally. And then 20 years later, they declassify and we've got a B-2 bomber. Like that's a really good example of something like that, where when technology becomes too good, well, then we got to bury that, stick it behind like all these different classifications because we don't want our enemies to have access to it, right? Like we don't want other people picking up on it and then developing technology that can rival ours.
Some people were asking, I guess one of the people who's kind of in the Tyler Robinson case, person of interest, they had some contracts, or the parent side contracts with Raytheon. Can you tell the audience what you told me about how they like segregate and separate so each piece doesn't know what the other piece is doing?
Oh yeah, that's just compartmentalization, right? I mean, companies do it. You're not going to have the intern at Coca-Cola have access to Coca-Cola's secret formula. right? Like you don't do that. It's compartmentalized information that only certain people should have access to. And so it's access control, right? And I mean, this happens everywhere. And there's times where, like, if you're working on a specific project, they'll break it down and decompose it into multiple smaller problems and then have different teams working on those problems. So no one team knows everything, right? And so, like, that's how you protect information, whether it's government information, whether it's defense information, whether it's corporate information, and it just makes sense. So that way, again, back to the one comment that, was it Brian, I think, was making, you protect against the humans, the aspect of it, the insider threat. Because if one person, I mean, look at the damage that Snowden did, that Edward Snowden did. Like, when he had access to, like, all this stuff and he was able to, like, download it and give it to our adversaries, like, that was very, very damaging to the United States. And so, like, you don't want people with that kind of access. Or you want to make sure that people that do have that access to the bigger picture are highly vetted and monitored to make sure nothing changes, right?
Monitor their bank account. Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure that there's not, like, ways that they can be compromised. If they're cheating on a spouse, if they've got, damaging things that they've done or whatever, that they could be exploited and then, turned against the United States, blackmailed, this, that, the other, like, whatever it is. You want to make sure of that, right? And so it just makes sense. Like, you want people that have protected access to be trustworthy. So that's the compartmentalization piece, is just break it down, spread it out. So that way, like, one, again, just like, like in a system where I was talking about how, like, you don't say if it's going to be exploited, you say when it's going to be exploited and how do you mitigate the impact of that piece getting exploited? Same thing, right? Like, you compartmentalize information and then you look at it and say, like, if this piece is compromised, none of the rest is. And so you're protecting the rest of it by compartmentalizing it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I am getting these pulled up here really quick because we have people asking about Flock. So let me
oh my gosh,
organized here really quick, and we will pull it up here. All right. So looking at this, so I just want to check if Orem, which is where UVU is, where Tyler Robinson was driving around in his vehicle and all that kind of stuff. It says, yes, Orem utilizes Flock safety automated license plate readers, which means they would have been able to have tracked his vehicle going around by those as well. The police department is one of approximately 30 law enforcement agencies in Utah that contract the company to track vehicles associated with crimes. So that means there's a very good chance that if it was his vehicle and he was in the area, they know about it based on his license plate in his vehicle. But moving over here, it says, this is Mary Tally Bowden. She says, per my local police department, Flock charges approximately $3,000 per year per camera. So American taxpayers are spending $349,671,000 per year to be constantly monitored. Most Americans are unaware this is happening. So it looks like there's 116,557 LPRs mapped in the USA right now. That is, that's crazy. I don't know how China compares.
Oh, even more. I mean, you've got surveillance states, right? Like, you think we're bad. Like, there's other places that are even worse. But yeah, I mean, it's really funny how they're not just tracking vehicles with these things. I mean, there's so much more information that you can get just from a camera stream. And there's probably more things on that sensor platform than just a camera. Like that, like if you're going to take the time and the money and everything else to put a camera up somewhere, you're going to put other sensors with it. Like, you're not just going to have a camera. That makes no sense.
I wonder if they're going to make Flock cameras for colonoscopies. So this one, this one here says Flock emits Bluetooth signal for phone connection and tracking. So this is a guy who's walking down the street and he's getting pings from all these different Flock devices.
So we are getting this Flock camera. It's emitting this Connect 36295 Bluetooth signal. It will randomly emit that. You can see it right there. We observed it 32 seconds ago. I can start this back up and you'll see we'll observe it consistently. This specific unit is obviously set off by human motion. Whether that's taking a picture of me is quite...
looks like it's buffering, but you can see it. It was flickering red, and he's tracking it there. So when they say it's not tracking people, it was tracking him on movement. So are you telling me that it's going to activate from motion, see a human being, and stop recording? Because this is what a guy that works there said. This is a very short clip, but I just want to play this here really quick.
You're saying Flock does not track people, correct?
Track people. That's right. And hold their movements like you asked. We're not tracking people.
But what do the Condor cameras do? They literally are designed to track a person, aren't they?
Not to track a person, no.
This is a Flock camera known as a Condor. Unlike the Falcon license plate reader camera, you'll notice this does track the movements of people. Whether or not it was designed to specifically track a person, you can see right now, in real time, no matter which way I move, the camera.
I like how it sounds like R2D2.
Yeah, when he said like does not track people, you're going to need to get the little button that bleeps out the audio for my response to that. Like that's that's so much crap. I mean, it's like, oh, you know, like this camera is to look for weather patterns, but oh, by the way, I mean, that's what it was designed for. But I mean, yeah, of course it's going to record a human if it's there, but it's not designed for that. Like, what a load of crap, man. Like, those things are absolutely UTS, like ubiquitous technology surveillance. It's like a defense term for like these smart cities, and everything in it is designed to track you. It tracks your vehicle. It tracks your phone. It tracks your face. It tracks your gait. Like, I don't even know if you know that, but like, even with your face covered and everything else, like there are technologies that can literally uniquely fingerprint a human being by how you walk, by your gait. Like, so like bull crap, man. Like it's UTS. They're tracking everything, whether it's designed for it or it just happens to be a happy coincidence that it can also do these other things. 100%. Like it's tracking Bluetooth. Like you saw that on the video. Like it's tracking the human. The guy's walking around. It's following him. Like, how can people say that with a straight face? Like, what a joke.
So we have, could someone have spoofed the alleged Discord confession? I think we covered that. We covered the Discord stuff. Ivan is Ivan. Thanks for being a channel member for 5 months. Wow. Apple Watch's identifiable access point. So I'm assuming the Apple Watch can be, can an Apple Watch that doesn't have Bluetooth and cellular, well, I guess they all have Bluetooth. Can an Apple Watch without cellular also be pinged the same way based off the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, I would assume?
Oh yeah, like if it's got Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, it's pinging all the different stuff. Like it's built into the protocols, so anything that has it. I mean, unless someone like specifically like removed it from the protocol in design, which why would you do that?
Yeah,
you're gonna break all your certifications. You're gonna break all your testings. Like, and a lot of these things too have like diagnostic modes that were like and diagnostic things that were put in for testing that happen to still be there. And so like those can be used as well. Like there's just so much stuff behind the scenes that unless you have like sophisticated test equipment, you would have no idea it's even there.
That's really interesting that you said that, because I was thinking about like developer mode on the phones and stuff like that you can turn on and get more capabilities and more functionality.
Well, think about it this way. I'm gonna build a system, right? And to test that system, I've got to put like certain things into that system to test it. All right. So now I've got a system with all these diagnostics in it that I'm going to use to test the system that like you don't need in production. You don't need it to be in the system later. It's just for testing. And then I go and I test the system and get it certified. Well, if I pull all those diagnostic things out, I lose my certification, but I need them there to get my certification. So now I'm just going to, and this goes back to voting machines. So voting machines, like they have to be certified. The software load has to be certified, right? And so if they find a bug in that software, they can't patch it. Because if they do, they lose their certification, and then they have to go back through the entire certification process. Well, guess what? Most states have laws that have digital voting machines that say that the systems have to be, quote, locked down, no changes to the system so many months before an election. Which means if there's a big bug in that system, I can't fix it before the election because it's already locked down by law. And I don't have time to recertify it. So it goes to the polls with that vulnerability in it. It's the same thing, right? Like once you get your certification, whatever's there is there. You're not taking it out. So you have all these systems that have like test modes, developer modes, like diagnostics things, this, that, the other, and they never get removed because then you violate your certification. Crazy. I know, man. Like it's such a crazy world. Like the more you peel away like of the layers, like the more it just becomes almost unbelievable.
So before we finish up the questions and super chats, I just want to ask you this one. So a lot of people think we're near or kind of in World War III. And I think to a lot of people that means that nukes are flying and all that. But would you say that we're in World War III digitally from a cybersecurity standpoint? And then how volatile are the nuclear systems to a cyber attack?
To the first question, yes. I mean, absolutely. I mean, you can read about it all over the news. China exploited this, Russia exploited that, this, that, the other. I mean, everybody does it. Like everybody's doing it to each other. Even like allies or pseudo allies and friendly nations are, you know, doing all this stuff behind the scenes. And nobody wants to really go out and put in the law that says like a cyber exploitation is a quote act of war, because then we're going to be at war with every nation in the country, every nation in the world, because everybody's doing it. And so, you know, that's really kind of the situation that we're in. I mean, if you go to like any major corporation, especially if you go to anybody, any defense industrial base company, anybody that's doing work for the federal government, the military, anybody in the defense ecosystem, and you look at their firewall logs, man, it's just going to be filled with probes, potential attacks, like people trying to get into the systems all day long.
Would that go for like residential as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, so ransomware, you know, like that's organized crime behind that. A lot of like Russian mob type stuff. Or, you know, like some of the African nations like Nigeria and stuff behind some of the scams and all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, like I said, like they're not trying to gain access to your computer so they can like spy on you. There's really no incentive for that. But what they're trying to do is like install ransomware on your machine. So you got to pay them money to get your computer back. So, you know, there's things like that are like everybody's a target, right? Everybody's a target, or they're trying to exploit your laptop so they can use it as part of a botnet, right? Like they can then use your laptop to attack another system. So that way, when that attack is what's called attributed, like in the attribution process, it looks like it came from you. So now you're going to be investigated, not them. They were using your laptop as an endpoint to like get to somewhere else in their attribution network or non-attribution network. So there's different reasons why your residential systems and stuff are at risk and people would want to get in them. But it's not like your Raytheon. I mean, like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing. You know, what's really interesting is Caterpillar. I read this a couple of years ago, but Caterpillar was like China's #2 target, because they wanted a lot of Caterpillar's engine designs and exhaust designs so they could copy it. It's corporate espionage. So even this here, like it's just a civilian corporation. They make bulldozers and dump trucks and stuff, but like that technology was so valuable, huge target.
I can see that for sure. Someone asked about sat nav phones. Are they secure? Are they more secure than typical cell phones?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at sat phones. I'm going to go back to the same answer as before. They're going to have uniquely fingerprintable things so they can be tracked. There's going to be vulnerabilities in them. They're made by humans. But I think like with satellites, though, there's probably layers of technology. Like for me as an attacker, like to get the right systems in order to attack that type of technology, it's going to cost more than just like a Wi-Fi scanner that I can just get anywhere, right? Like it's just a bigger technology. But you know, that being said, I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit too, and just say that like with the proliferation of software defined radios and open source, you know, RF processing and agentic AI programming, it's getting a lot easier to go after like more boutique type protocols. It's getting a lot easier to do that.
Well, and that code's getting shared around as well. So not only do you have AI to enhance it faster, but you have, you know, it's widely available.
Right.
Let's see. Kathy Friends, thanks for the super chat. Ask him about the instance in Antrim County, Michigan, The local poll workers said 6,000 votes changed from Republican to Democrat the eve of Joe Biden vote. You know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that specific one. Was that, I'd have to dig into that a little bit more. Was that like a digital voting machine that was in there? I can look that up really quick, actually. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, if you want to look that up really quick, I can. So in 2024, Romania had a Russian hybrid attack that changed their polls. And also, I guess still in 2024, Venezuela presidential election, the voting machines produced paper tally sheets that were collected in mass, and then they changed what the votes were, and the result was that Maduro remained in power. So he was actually technically voted out, but they manipulated the system of the machines, the electronic voting machines, to make it look like he won. It looks very common. I mean, this has been going on all the way back to like, let's see, 2003 at least.
Yeah, the documents from that the White House just released, they go they were talking about investigations all the way back to 2004 with the Venezuela type stuff. So like, yeah, it goes back pretty far. So let's see.
Looks like there was, like you said, there's some in Africa as well. 2017 Kenya presidential election. Supreme Court annulled the election because of tampering. And it looks like there was something in, what state is this? There's one where Republican got flipped to Democrat, but it's not the same one that's mentioned here. So I guess I haven't heard about the Michigan one. That's new to me.
Yeah, so the Michigan one, this one is actually talking more about like votes went the other way, but they're calling it a configuration mismanagement. And that's actually good that she asked this question, because that was another piece of that attack surface is you got the voting machine, but like the machine company doesn't make the ballots that go on it. Like that's usually more third-party contractors that are hired by the counties and the states that actually make the actual ballots for those machines. And so just like in the defense industrial base, like if I'm going to, if I wanted to attack Raytheon, for example, and I keep picking on Raytheon, but I love Raytheon. I worked there for a very long time. And so don't mean to pick on you guys, but like if you're going to attack Raytheon because they have like all these secrets and stuff, like you're not going to go after Raytheon. Like Raytheon has massive cybersecurity budgets. They have lots of professionals that are securing their network, securing their systems and all that stuff. What you're going to do is you're going to go find a small little startup defense company that has a subcontract on one of Raytheon's contracts, and you're going to go after them because they don't have the same cybersecurity budget. They're actually a smaller company, have less contract size. So the rules apply, there's a different set of rules that apply to them versus like a big Raytheon. So they're going to be a softer target. You get into that system. And again, just like going from a laptop or a Ring doorbell to a laptop to this, you're going to pivot through the networks and you're going to go from the small company up to the big company. Right. And so, yeah, same kind of thing. You don't really have to go after the election services, the Dominions, like those. Go find like the little subcontractors that they're using. Go find the little companies that don't quite have the same budget or fall under different rule sets. Go find the third-party contractor that's just creating the ballot that's going to go onto the machine, exploit them, and then change that digitally, right? And like do it in a way that's kind of hidden behind the scenes. So when you go to tally the votes, what the person saw versus what the machine output, it might be different and really hard to audit, that. So there's, you got to get really creative when you're an attacker. You got to get really, really creative. But the thing is humans can be awfully creative.
And I think AI assists that even more by coming up with more situations we couldn't think of, or it does it faster.
It can. Yeah. I mean, you can have it explore different things in different ways. Yeah. But I mean, it's still all trained on humans, right? So like there are limitations to the AI.
Well, and like I heard a lot of it too is like old data. They put all this old data in, some of it's bad data, some of it's inaccurate data, and then AI is using that to pull facts out for people, right?
Well, and it's getting better, but AI has this like LLMs, specifically large language models. That's like your ChatGPTs, your Claudes, and all that kind of stuff. Like they hallucinate. So there's a lot of times like you'll be using it like, yeah, give me statistics on this, this, and that. And it couldn't find any. So it just makes them up. And so like always ask, like, I want you to attribute every single statistic or fact or claim that you make with a source. And then you can at least go look at, like, the source might still be wrong. Like it might be using like some weird, website that like is totally fake, but at least you can click on it and go read it and verify it for yourself.
So between those, because obviously in your arena, you use, I can't remember what you called it, but it's basically, it uses Claude, right? Claude AI.
Which one? I'm sorry.
The one that you use mainly for like your development and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Like, Anthropic's a big one that a lot of people use.
Yeah. So between Claude, ChatGPT, and Grok, and that's the only ones I know of, but I know there's probably a lot more. And there's some that actually like combine, aspects of all of those and kind of pull it into one service. Which one? Well, first of all, are any of them compromised? And so let's just do that first. Are any of them compromised?
It depends on what you mean by compromised. Like by their nature, they're compromised. They're built by humans. They're trained by humans, right? So like if you look at it, like most of the large language models, like they're all made by big tech. Like these are big tech companies, California based usually. They tend to lean a little to the left because that's how they're trained. Like the moderators that they use to moderate the information and like retrain the model to like promote certain things. They're humans, they're biased, they lean left. And so the models tend to lean left. I think Elon Musk was actually trying to fix a lot of that with Grok, and take a lot of that biasness out. How successful he was, I'm not sure. I don't know specifically, but I bet there's probably organizations out there that track the skew of the outputs. Yeah.
Like ground
and
news.
You could probably go and actually like see like which ones lean which way and by how much and all that. So
now, is there one of those three that you would recommend that most people would use over another one?
It depends on what you're doing. And my answer is going to change every day because they update them so fast, right? Like Anthropic released, a new version of their model and it just smoked OpenAI and ChatGPT. But then like 3 months later, ChatGPT releases their model and it smokes Anthropic's, right? Yeah. And, I've found that like in the war of AI, the leaders are OpenAI and Anthropic, right? Like Grok's back there, Gemini's back there, Copilot's back there in the background, and everybody at Microsoft is probably going to get really mad that I said that. But there's like researchers will actually go out there and actually benchmark all these different models. So at any given time, you can go look at the latest benchmarks and see which one performs better at logical tasks, which one performs better at writing, which one performs better at coding, which one performs better at design. So you can really make up your mind on which one you want to use. But it's like all things, usually the companies that are kind of that forward, like the most forward, not forward, ahead, and that's your Anthropic and your OpenAI, they tend to just be better. But again, look at the benchmarks, and don't fall for the Chinese models are better than US models. Like argument right now. Like there's all these Chinese models that are getting released and stuff. And you want to talk about models being compromised, like go get some of those Chinese models and ask it about Tiananmen Square and ask it for all the downfalls of communist governments and the CCP. And you're gonna be like, there are none. It's all butterflies and flowers. Like we're amazing. Like, so don't trust that. And, they're doing what's called distilling and they're reverse engineering OpenAI and Anthropic models and, Fable, Opus, Sol, and all those. They're distilling them to actually train their models for cheaper and faster. So like they perform very well on benchmarks. They're very cherry picked. They're trained in specific ways, and they're going to be extremely biased to be favorable to non-Western ideals. Yeah. So don't fall for that crap of like Chinese models are better. Like anybody that thinks that and anybody that's using them, good luck. Have fun. Don't die.
Moon Goddess, thanks for the super chat. She says, that's why all my shit is 80s and 90s. I'm old school.
Dude, that 1965 Ford Mustang or like an old like Bronco or something, like all the way, baby. Like no one's taking over my steering. I can't even steer it. How could anybody else?
Colby Upston, thanks for the super chat. Tinfoil hat folks were crazy right all along.
You know, it's kind of crazy sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something that we were talking about yesterday. It's how all the conspiracy theories are seeming, like all the conspiracy theories over the last like 30 to 50 years have basically been proven true in some aspect of the conspiracy.
Oh yeah. And that's just it, right? Like there's always threads of truth, right? Like, and you can use it for good or evil, right? Like there's people and narcissists who are really, really good at building an entire false narrative around one piece of truth, one fact that just grounds everything else into that truth and makes everything else seem truthful because like, well, everybody knows the sky is blue. And so everything else that kind of went along with it, it lends credence to it. But, you know, back to tinfoils, I actually read this, like, I think this guy did this study and I think it was like, it was kind of fun, right? Like it's a really funny thing, but he used real science to show that tinfoil can actually amplify signals. So if you're using it to like protect your head, you might be amplifying other signals. So tinfoil might not be the best material to use for that. You need a true Faraday cage.
Yeah, let's talk about that really quick. A few people asked about that specifically. So we're talking about all these different signals. We talk about how the phone, even if it's turned off, can still be transmitting. And like an iPhone, you can't even remove the battery to try to get the capacitors to lose all the energy. So in those cases, I personally, I bought a 3-pack of Faraday cages. Well, you know, bags for cell phones. I put my cell phone in it. I sealed it up. I called it from my wife's phone, and it started ringing. So,
yep.
First of all, make sure you test them. But what's your thoughts on Faraday just in general?
Well, it's RF engineering and RF radio frequency, right? And I like to call those guys like wizards. Like I have a guy on staff that's like our RF front end guy. So he does all of our software defined radio work, and he is an absolute wizard. I have no idea what he does, like in terms of like how all this stuff works. It's black magic, right? So it's really hard, right? There's a lot of physics behind it. There's a lot of physics and stuff behind it. But the thing is when you can shield certain frequencies easily, but then other frequencies are not shielded. So when you go and you look at like a Faraday cage or a Faraday bag or this or that, like it's got to be designed specifically for the frequencies that you want, right? Like the bags that you got might have blocked all Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, like right between like, you know, anywhere from like 2 gigahertz to 5 or 6 gigahertz, like where the range where all the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signals are, like could have blanked it out. But then like 900 megahertz or like cell signal somewhere else in like the upper gigahertz, like could have gone right through it like an invisible wall, you know?
That's a good point.
And so like you got to design your enclosure for the frequencies you're trying to block. And when you want to block all of them, it gets really expensive. I mean, like you're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to make like a tiny little room that'll just block all RF at every frequency. And so, you know, like you've got anechoic chambers, you've got, you know, Faraday cage rooms and different things that block sound, that block frequencies. And so, yeah, it's just, you got to know which frequencies you're trying to block. And then of course, test it. Right? Like, is it from a reputable company? Like, are you sure it's actually going to like do what they say? Or is it from some fly by night in Asia that's just trying to sell you a bag?
So don't use a Temu Faraday bag.
Probably not.
Ivan, thanks for the super chat. If flock systems are in the wild and Fed uses them, wouldn't they require CMMC certs?
Oh, good question. So it depends, right? Like if the federal government is procuring them and it's on a federal government site and stuff, then maybe. But those who make the rules can make exclusion to the rules as well. So the CMMC would, I think, more apply to flock itself, right? So like flock would have to have CMMC requirements. Now, just like 3 days ago, Department of War suspended CMMC level 2 and above. So for those that don't know, CMMC is the cybersecurity maturity model certification. So basically any defense contractor has to abide by certain cybersecurity rules and like cyber hygiene to make sure we're being secure and we're protecting information. And so like CMMC level 1 is like it goes back to NIST 800-171, which is a standard that, you know, it's like 100, Ivan, I don't know if you know, it's like 120 or something like criteria in it. And it's like, do you use passwords that are this long and this complex? You know, like, do you have a firewall? Like, you know, simple stuff. And you just self-certify. So you go through the list, you mark yes or no, and then you self-certify to level 1. Well, level 2 and above required auditors to come in and make sure that like the system that you said you built and the security that you said you have, you actually have it. Well, they just suspended it. Like CMMC has been like the redheaded stepchild. Like it's been beaten up a million times through the last, 4, 5, 6 years. It's been delayed and then it was put into practice and now they just suspended it again because they're like, yeah, we're not going to do this. We're going to go and revamp it yet again. So, not really sure how much like something falling under CMMC would apply. I mean, maybe it just says that like, Flock has some level of cybersecurity, but I don't think CMMC would actually prevent it from tracking things that shouldn't be tracked, or I don't know. I'm pretty sure the federal government would be on the side of, yeah, great. Put those sensors in there, track everything. Thank you. Like they're going to bias on the side of, yeah, we want all the info.
Well, they usually build those things from a future standpoint too. So they make sure the video, the sensors and everything have the capability to do everything they ever want to do for a surveillance state. But they're going to initially start just by, we just do license plates. But the only thing that needs to change is software. The hardware is already there. Man, that's such a great point that you just made. Absolutely. And I mean, as any intelligent designer, you do the same thing, right? Like put everything you can in there on modern day tech because you might need it. We'll just disable it in firmware and we can update it later. That's a great point. Heather May, thanks for the super chat. Thanks, guys. Informative. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Moon Goddess, 1980 Chevy Camaro, analog, tinfoil hat, and I'm good.
Nice. Love it.
1980 Chevy Camaro.
1980 Chevy Camaro.
Did you ever have, back in the day, one of those vehicles?
Me? Oh, man. I was always broke.
What was your first car?
Oh, man. That's one of the security questions. I'm not going to answer that. Like people are going to like, yeah. Like, you trying to like social engineer me? You're trying to get info out of me? I usually actually make up answers to those. So even if you know the truth, like what was your first job? I'm not going to like put the real answer there. I'm just going to make something up. But mine was a Chevy Cavalier. Man, like,
oh, nice.
I don't remember what year it was. It was probably like I don't even know. 80s, something in the 80s, I'm sure.
Mine was a Volkswagen Fox that was like 10 sizes too small for any human being. It had no muffler and it had to go into... It had first and fourth gear. There was no second or third. And to go into reverse, you had to push down and back. Like, nice. It's like German engineering. It was horrible. And then like 3 months after I bought it, the transmission fell out from underneath it.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's true. Like my first car, I think I blew the clutch out like 6 times. Yeah. It was a faulty clutch. It wasn't that I didn't know how to drive a stick, but.
Sure it wasn't. Let's see. Colby Upston. I was tardy to class. What's this gentleman's name? It is right here. Terry Reinert. He owns and is the CEO of and also develops for Fleet Defender. And did you want to give them like a quick rundown of kind of what you do for Fleet Defender?
Yeah, Fleet Defender. So we defend commercial logistics vehicles from cyber attack and cargo theft. So we, sit inside the vehicle. We've got AI agents and stuff that are running in there that are looking for indicators of compromise to protect our supply chain from, nation state actors and bad guys doing bad things to our supply chain. That's kind of like the short of it. We stop your car from getting hacked is what it really boils down to. But in this case, the car is an 80,000 pound semi truck driving down the highway.
Yep. All right.
There we go. 110 requirements. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, that's for you. I don't know what any of that is. So
Yeah, that's just back
And
to like it has 110 requirements that like you have to meet in order to satisfy NIST 171.8. And like I said, across 14 controls, that's like access control, physical control, or physical access. Different things.
I think that what's going to be the next generation of terror, and people don't realize it, especially with AI and automation with planes and drones and automobiles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they oh, go ahead.
How hackable are airplanes? Like just 747 passenger, commercial plane. How hackable are those? Could you make one drop out of the sky theoretically?
Well, so I mean, it's again, it's a system of systems. There's hundreds and hundreds of computers in one of those airplanes, and they're all segmented on different networks and stuff. So, like, if you want to talk about hacking the little display on the back of the seat, it's been done. Like, you can go look at the YouTube videos. Like, a guy plugged into it and he like made the plane fly around and do kind of all other stuff. But like, just because you can like access the screen on the back of the seat doesn't mean you can get to the flight controls. And, especially in aviation, there's a lot of regulations, and they're different regulations for different systems, right? Like, I don't even know what the modern ones are. So I worked in avionics, my gosh, 2005 to 2010, somewhere.
Well, you're a pilot too, right?
Yeah, I'm also a pilot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how someone's a pilot? They'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so like they're like back in the day, it was like DO 178B, I think was the number. But basically what it said is if you're making like an infotainment system to like put Sirius XM into the cockpit, so you can listen to Sirius XM music while you're flying, like that's going to fall under a different certification level than like flight controls. Like navigation would be at like a level 2 or a B, or I don't even see like what, I don't even remember what the nomenclature was. But like when you get into like things that like if they go wrong, things fall out of the sky, that's like a level A or like the highest level of certification. And what that basically means is you have to test it more rigorously and differently. And so basically what I'm saying is like the more safety critical a system is, the more highly certifiable it is. Like the higher it's got to be tested, the more scrutiny that's on it. And they do a really, really good job. Now, is it 100%? No, there's no such thing as a perfectly secure system. There's no such thing as a non-failable system. You can always do something to it to make it do something it's not supposed to. But the good news is I usually feel very comfortable flying. I'm more afraid of the pilot doing something wrong than the airplane doing something wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I always joke, like anybody I'm traveling with, they always kind of look at me weird. Cause like as the pilot's walking up to the, get on the plane or whatever, I'm like, okay, he looks sober. He looks awake. And he looks like he's in a good mood. Okay, I'll get on the plane, right? Because like I'm way more worried about a pilot screwing up or an air traffic controller screwing up, which is rare, but it happens. Than like an actual like failure. There's so much redundancy on passenger airplanes, so much redundancy that I feel more comfortable flying than I do driving my car on the highway. If that helps.
Interesting. Colby Upson, thanks for the super chat. 1976 male Jeep first car could start with paperclip.
Nice. I remember the ones that you'd have to turn the key on and then take a screwdriver. I think my mom's Nissan Sentra was like this. You had to like turn the key and then you had to go use a screwdriver to jump 2 terminals on the starter to actually get it to start. Like old school, like back when things were made well. Like nowadays, like when your car breaks, you can't do anything to fix it. It's all software, like, and you don't have access to fix it. Like you kind of have, you're at the you're held to the dealership to fix it for you.
For a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh man. Well, we're looking at 2 hours and about 20 minutes here. So I think we'll, that was our last super chat. And then I think we'll do one more question and then we will call it there. We thank everyone for being here. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Again, if you want to follow him, he's actually going to be doing his own podcast as well. So he has a couple he's going to be starting, but he has some on Fleet Defender, and then he has another one he's going to do in addition to that. That's more like, I guess, on the business side. But if you want to follow him and stay in touch, it's Terry Reinert on YouTube. It's at Fleet Defender -1. I'll work with him on that to get get all that smoothed out. So it's just like at Fleet Defender or however he wants to do it. And then fleetdefender.com. That's the best ways to get a hold of him initially. Are you on X?
I think so. I think I'm like at Let's Go Wheels Up, but I've got to get my socials all figured out. Like I come out of a world where like no one's supposed to know me, and like I'm working in like rooms with no windows and stuff. And so the last decade of like I've been on the news a few times and stuff. It's kind of weird. People know your name, like, but I got to get my shit together and like actually make it look good. So maybe you can help me with that.
All right, last question. This is from William Nolan. Is there anti-gravity stuff too? Like the 0 point energy, like I guess like MH370 flight that like he's saying that the three things work together and like made it disappear out of the sky and like warp somewhere else or something.
Man, I hope so. Like that's just cool stuff, right? Like I love all these disclosures, and you and I, we've talked offline a few times about UAPs and stuff like that, and just the technology that's out there. I mean, we can see it. Like we got videos of it now. Like they're releasing them and stuff, so we know it exists. Like we don't know what it is. It's probably some classified government program, some kind of weird drone using super weird technology 50 years in the future. But man, I can't wait to find out. Like that stuff's just cool.
I hope we get to see it before we're, in our lifetime.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and there's really interesting stuff too. Like, again, you can make things look like magic, but it's really just science. Like you can use Wi-Fi signals to see through walls. Like there's tons of research. You can Google it, you can look it up and stuff. But like, just by the way Wi-Fi signals are bouncing around in the building and interacting with humans and your body, like in the room, you can have sensors on the other side of a wall and you can see inside clear as day, so you can, that sounds like magic. You're seeing through a wall, but you're just using Wi-Fi signals. Right? Like it's magic. Just advanced engineering.
All right. And with that, we thank everyone for being here. And Terry, again, thanks for joining me. And there will be an off-script interview with Terry either later this week or early next week. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And we will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.